this evening to the October 14th, 2020 regular meeting of our governing board. Mrs. Nye, could you please do our roll call? Here.
Here.
David Evans.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We'll start off with some routine business. Our first is to approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 regular board meeting. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 regular board meeting as presented.
There's a second. It's been moved and seconded. All those who approve all those who approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2020 board meeting, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Our next is the approval and ratification of payroll and expenditure vouchers. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve and ratify payroll for September 24th, 2020 and current expenditures.
I'll second.
All those in favor of approval and ratification of payroll and expenditure vouchers, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Dr. Castile, is there any correspondence?
Not this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is our bond and override update. This is a public hearing portion of our meeting, and it will be presented by our Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Lana Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, tonight we are going to review our maintenance and operations override and our bond override from the past fiscal year. And then we'll talk about upcoming projects and where we're at financially with our existing 2015 and 2019 bond. This is a requirement by statute that we are, by the 31st of October, we are to present to you as the governing board during a public hearing information about how we spent our override and how we're spending our bond dollars. So our maintenance and operations override was, our latest one was approved in 2019, was approved at 15%. Back in 2017. So in 2019, 2020, we had 15%, and this year we also have 15%. We also, our bond proceeds for fiscal year 2015, we have spent almost all of our bond proceeds, and we're going to go over the total allocation of that. And then we were fortunate to where our voters approved a $290 million bond in November of 2019. We were able to sell approximately $125 million of those proceeds this past spring. And then we're going to review where we're at with each of those line items. We want to talk a little bit about that because we have been able to maximize school facility board dollars, lease purchase money to really meet the needs of our community. And we've, again, been very fortunate that our community has approved not only our overrides, but has approved both our elections in 2015 and 2019 related to bonds. A little bit about our budget history. Back in 2003, we only had a 10% maintenance and operations budget. We approved that again in 2008. And then in 2013, we were able to increase our override from 10 to 15%. We actually, in 2012, we had an election. We did not get an approval to increase it, but in 2013, our community supported an increase from 10% to 15%. We can't. I know we would love to be able to go up to 20% or 25% of our maintenance and operations budget, but unfortunately, we only can go up to 15%. That's a state limit based on what our legislature has approved. So we can only spend 15% of our budget on top of our existing revenue control limit. We we renewed our override in 2017, and sometimes people say, why do you do that in 4 years instead of 5 years? So our bonds are good for 5 years, and they phase down in year 6 and year 7. We go after a renewal within 4 years, because if we fail, then we want to be able to be fully funded the next year, in the 5th year when we go out to our voters. And so we asked our voters to renew that election in 2017. It was renewed. And then we'll have, this year, we'll be putting together an override committee to look at asking our board to be able to put on the question on the ballot in November of 21 to renew our override again in 2021. There's the option of doing 2 different things, going after it in year 4, going after it in year 5. So this kind of lays it out for you how the years work. So the override was approved in 2017, as you can see. It's fully funded, meaning you can take the full maximum amount for the first 5 years, you can see, and then it goes down to 2/3 capacity and 1/3 capacity. And so for us, we usually go after it in year 4. So for us, year 4 would be fiscal year 2021. Now that can only be made and determined by you as a board, so we will present options to you in the spring, and typically in June, you'll call for an election if you decide to do that, either this June or potentially next year, depending on when you want to put the override renewal on the ballot. The voter pamphlet back in 2017, the 15% override equated to $35 million, and the tax rate was about $1.34. And our budget set for the next fiscal year in 18-19 was the first year we could maximize that after the voters approved it. And it was slightly more than that. It was at $37 million. And why is that? Well, we grew. And also we had additional money that was in the budget from the previous years with inflation, growth, and then as the years with the passage of Proposition 123 and with the governor's 20 by 2020, that's increased the M&O budget. So therefore the override has increased, because as your base level goes up, your revenue control limit goes up, your increase of the 15% on top of that goes up. So that's why you see a budget increase from 2018-19. You see the override budget go up. In 19-20, it went to $39 million. And then you see in 2021, our budget this year is $41 million. So still 15% based on our budget. We've been growing. We've also seen an increase in inflation, and then we've been fortunate to receive the governor's 20 by 2020, which ultimately all of that goes into the base support level, and then we get to times that by 15% to come up with our override amount. So the tax rate is very close to the same amount every year, but the decrease in the actual tax rate is because our assessed value has been going up. Our commercial and residential property has increased across the district, so therefore that tax rate has slightly came down based on our assessed values. What was put into the 2017 voter pamphlet was to allow the district to meet the demanding growth needs within the district. And as you know, we have been growing. As you saw from the presentation at 6 o'clock, we have grown approximately 15,000 students since 2005. So every year, that's almost 1,000 students when you average it out over the last 15 years. We wanted to make sure we fully implemented programs that were related to long-term strategic planning related to our Journey 2020-25. We wanted to help attract and retain great teachers, super important. Again, I have been in the district 8 years, and I have heard Dr. Castile say it over and over. We want to make sure we pay our staff, and we have high salaries and competitive salaries, and we want to make sure we keep those class sizes low. And this override has been able to provide for that in a number of ways. So we want to make sure that to reduce the district's needs to eliminate effective programs. So we've been very fortunate in having that we don't have to eliminate programs. You've seen districts who do not have overrides or cannot renew their overrides. You start to see programs that are taken away because they can't fund them if they don't have override dollars in place. Class size is important. We're still extremely enviable in the East Valley. We're at 1 to 23. I don't know any other school district or charter school that's at that level right now, so still very envious of the class sizes that we're able to provide here in Chandler, in Arizona. We were able to provide some professional development to teachers, and then we're able to maintain safety features at our districts. If you've been to some of our schools, you've seen that they were built. For example, Knox Elementary was built back when the era of you could have the centralized administration office in the middle of the campus. We're able to provide a security guard to make sure that people coming in and off of our campuses are safe, and we know who's coming in and out of our campuses. So a lot of different things we're able to utilize money from our override for. Expenditures in fiscal year 19, which is the 18-19 year, and fiscal year 20, which was the 19-20 year, and then this upcoming year in 2021. Again, they still reflect the same things that were in that voter approved initiative that was on the ballot, and we want to make sure to help ensure academic programming remains at the current levels. We want to provide competitive salaries, again, super important to retain, attract highly qualified teachers and staff. That's all staff. We want to make sure that we continue in areas to enhance areas in technology, STEM, physical education, athletics, fine arts, and other electives. We're very proud of all of the programs we can provide for our students. If it's at our high schools, our junior highs, or our elementary schools, we have great programs that our parents are proud that their kids are in, our kids are proud of, and we're proud of the success that our kids have had in all different walks of their K-12 experience. And then promoting a safe and healthy school environment. As we know, it's super important to provide kids with support at school and to help kids to have a safe and healthy environment for them to go to. And all of our schools have found different ways to make sure to provide that for their students at their schools. And again, override dollars are critical for all of those areas, and we're very thankful that our voters have supported us. All right, so now moving to the 2015 bond and the 2019 bond. We approved a $196 million bond back in 2015. Majority of the first line item was $81 million, was to build Castile High School. We were also built Auxiliary Elementary. We actually had done a lease purchase, and then we were able to pay that lease purchase off out of this line item for those two schools. We were very fortunate in that we thought it was going to be a small school. We ended up having a huge demand out in that area. And between our bond and the school facilities board, we were able to accommodate and meet the needs. We had 4 phases at that high school. Never thought we were going to have 4 phases. We ended up having 4 different phases of construction at Castile High School and Auxiliary. We've also been able to renovate a number of our schools. We've renovated all of our high schools. We've renovated a number of our elementary schools. We've added portables and redone portables. There's a lot of things that we've been able to do in renovations throughout our school district to meet the needs of all K through 12 schools. We did think we were going to spend a lot of money on HVAC and air conditioning. We did not actually spend as much as we projected, and some of that's because Frank Fletcher and his team applied for grants through the school facilities board to pay for some of those things, and we were able to get more life out of some of the units that we currently have. Furniture and equipment, buses and technology, we spent majority of that money on buses and technology were the 2 main areas. We've been able to increase our fleet and to upgrade our fleet. And then also we've been able to meet some of those technology needs across the district that we've had. Renovations to support services, we originally had that in for our transportation facility to add on to our facility that our old facility that we had. We ended up adding a new transportation facility, but originally we had that. And then our last line item was we originally wanted to have a new software system, which is Visions, which we're very happy about and excited that we're in our 3rd year of utilizing our Vision software system. So just the graph on majority of that money was spent on non-administrative construction costs. We had some on the pupil transportation. We paid off the lease, which actually went towards the 2 schools. So majority of the 26%, the 51 are all on school-related items. We had some small expenses related to furniture and equipment. We had a generator that we purchased, and we purchased the Vision software system that is our accounting software system. So those are the main things that were purchased and spent. The 2019 bond was just approved by our voters in November. We had a successful election and our largest election that we've had in Chandler Unified School District's history. Majority of that is in the top line item, which is construction and acquisition and improvements to our existing schools. So it is adding high school number 7 on there. It was adding Rice Elementary School. It was renovating Weinberg Elementary School. And then there's a lot of money that is related to renovations of our schools. We have also put money into furnitures and equipment and technology. Some of that is related to the equipment to equip those 2 new schools. A lot of that is a majority of that is in technology. We increased the amount that we have for technology overall. We have some construction acquisition and improvements of administration facilities built into that in case we need to it's not just this facility, but any of our support service areas that we have to improve in that area too. Pupil transportation, as we grow, we have over 250 buses right now, and so to maintain those and replace those within a decade is important for the future to make sure we have safe transportation to and from schools. We have some money for technology, furniture, and equipment for support facilities because they're not specifically for, again, we support all of our schools, but our support staff and grounds, food service, all of those areas. And then paying off potentially a lease payoff in the future if we were to have some payments towards the lease that we can't pay off in the future. We put an amount towards that. This just breaks out again. Majority of almost all of that money is for construction and renovations of our current existing properties. This gives a summary of where we end with our 2015 bond. We're required by statute to stay within certain thresholds. You can overexpend by 10% of the overall amount. So of $196 million, you can overexpend a line item by 10% of this amount. So we could overexpend a line item by $19.6 million. We have one last purchase of buses out of this for this fiscal year that will come out of this bond. The majority of the rest of the projects we have spent out of the 2015 bond, and we even have a portion of the new high school, about $11 million of construction costs and architecture costs that were able to come out of the construction and improvements line item out of these funds. So this, in 2015, we will have expensed everything. We have purchase orders in place, all of it down to 0, and now we will be able to utilize our 2019 bond from this point forward. If you want a specific list of all the projects, we wanted to keep this at a high-level presentation, but if you want a list of all the projects completed in 2015 and the outstanding purchase orders that are currently in place to finish out the 2015 bond, you are welcome to have that, and we can send that to you. 2019 bond, we have a number of things. We have a list, the overall amount, according to the voter pamphlet, there is $290 million. We have approximately $132 million worth of projects right now. Again, mostly those are to do with the high school and to do with Rice Elementary, and then a number of renovation projects between parking lots, Weinberg gifted renovation, and some other projects that we have going on. We have purchase orders and are planned on, but we don't have a PO for yet, but we plan on purchasing in the future. We have some projects that are outlined, and once we have approval, we have to bring them back to you as a board, depending on the bidding procurement process that we use. We have about $30 million worth of needs coming up that, again, we'll have to bring back to you once Dr. Castile has approved. Out of that, that means that there's about $127 million that are left. Well, we actually didn't sell that much, as you recall. We only sold $125 million worth of bonds, but we were able to secure a lease that the governing board approved last year for $34 million, and the school facilities board has funded between the land and the construction amount of $47 million towards high school number 7. So with those two funds, ultimately, we were able to shift expenditures in there. We still have $209 million left of the $290 million. So we have enough. We don't plan on selling another bond until July of 22. That will be the next time we sell some bonds. We'll sell $90 million approximately in July of 22. And during that time, we'll pay off the lease of $34 million. So we have a certain amount that's left right now after we finish our 2 schools to finish projects and to strategize for the future. And then we will be coming back to the board probably in the end of May, first part of June of 2022 to sell the next amount of bonds. This is a tax rate comparison. It's super important for us to make sure that we keep our tax rate at a certain level, especially because in the voter pamphlet, we promised that to our voters, a certain level of where we would stay within that tax amount. And you can see we're the second lowest. Gilbert Unified School District is slightly less than us at 6.25. We're at 6.42. And the biggest difference between us and the lowest is our overrides are all pretty similar based on assessed values, slight differences. But bonds are typically where you see the biggest difference in the secondary area. And you can see we have more than Gilbert does in that area, and we're still building schools. We have been growing. Gilbert had not grown near as much as we had, and we've grown a lot more, so we have more outstanding debt in that area. Therefore, we have a little bit more of our overall tax rate. You can actually jump all the way down. You can see that Queen Creek is by far the highest tax rate, and most of that is within their bonds, and they're one of the fastest growing kind of areas in the nation right now, and so they're having to build facilities to meet that growth need, which means that they have a lot of construction needs compared to their residential and their commercial property amounts. So we're still super important for us to maintain and keep that rate as flat as possible, so that our taxpayers don't see this huge roller coaster of a tax amount, and we pride ourselves on trying to keep that as low as possible. We're also very fortunate that we have great residential and great commercial properties within our district, and so that we're able to keep that down also. The School Facilities Board, how does this all fit in here? In the past, you have always been approving requests for new construction over the last 5 years for new facilities. We're not asking the School Facilities Board for new construction dollars because ultimately we've projected out with the last funds that we received for high school number 7 to meet our growth needs that will peak and then eventually will slightly go down. And we have received those funds through the $47 million we received for high school number 7. We got $35 million in building amounts and then $12 million in land. So we sent in the school facilities report because it's a requirement by statute to submit that in by September 1st. We have to update that student population, our square footage. There's a lot of requirements that are updated within that. We show our enrollment, but with COVID, we just put in the amount of enrollment that we had, and then we put in our old projections because we don't know where that's going to end. We'll probably revise that. No new construction requests, only slight changes for our square footage that have been in there, and then renovation expenditures. So no new money will be coming in from the School Facilities Board related to construction, but Frank Fletcher and his team have done a great job of applying for grants and will continue to do that for building renewal, for preventative maintenance areas, of replacement of HVAC roofs, those kinds of things. But most of our construction dollars will continue to come from the 2019 bond from this point forward of what we have left. Any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. I appreciate that. It is a public hearing, but we'll go ahead and start with our board member questions first, and then I'll move on to if we have any questions from the public. Are there any board members with questions? Mrs. Bruner?
I just had one regarding transportation. So could you just explain a little bit more what that was, how much, like the location where we stored the bus versus buying buses, and how that might relate to M&O if we have more efficient buses or anything like that?
Sure, great question. So currently we are very fortunate in that we have a bond in place to pay for school buses right now, because the only other fund that you'd be able to take that from is your capital fund. And so a lot of school districts across Arizona have had to take that from their maintenance and operations fund, and they had to move it over into capital to purchase buses because there's no formula that creates that in our state. So we're very fortunate that we received bond dollars specifically for buses so that we don't have to use our maintenance and operations dollars to ultimately fund our buses. We also were fortunate in that we had not built a new transportation facility in years, and our voters approved for us to do something to add on to our current existing one, and then we made the decision to move where our bus location was. We kind of did the analysis of adding a few additional route miles, but also efficiencies within putting a new facility up. And we feel like we could help our maintenance and operations budget become more effective. We could have less administration because we didn't have 2 to 3 different sites for transportation. We also felt like we could do a better job if we had a better organized system at the transportation yard. But we also needed to make sure we valued our employees as they perform at the transportation yard. Our mechanics, we're working in a state-of-the-art facility to keep our buses safe and on the road in a speedy fashion once they're down and fixed. But transportation is definitely difficult. We are in a landlocked arena of we only have 80 square miles, and we're funded only based on the miles driven to and from school. I was in a district up in the northern part of the state, and we made money in transportation because we went out 80 miles to pick up a kid and brought a kid back 80 miles. Here, we only go maybe 3 or 4 miles to pick up a child and bring them back 3 or 4 miles. I only get paid for 7 to 8 miles for that bus for the day, where in the northern district, you'd get paid for 160 miles for that bus. So some of our formulas don't quite work in the transportation arena, and for Chandler, it's going to be very difficult to ever bring in a lot of money in transportation, because we only have so far to pick up the kid and bring them back. We try to maximize. People always want to know why we have different start times for education, and that's because we would have to have almost triple the fleet if we did not. So we start our schools with our high schools and then our elementaries and our junior high to maximize our fleet, and also to be able to attract drivers, because if drivers can't get close to a full-time equivalent job, they're not going to work for us. They're going to go work for Amazon or UPS or someone else. So building the new facilities helped not only with, back to your original question, it helped minimize the cost of transportation related to the administration costs of running 3 different areas. We also felt like we could route a little bit better. We'd have all of our special education equipment immediately there. We'd be able to swap drivers when we needed to and maximize that. And then we thought we'd even speed up some of our service times because we had everybody and we were able to work together to distribute buses. But we definitely think it's a huge improvement for our district. If you'd been out to our previous facility, this is a huge improvement, something we're proud of for our district and should be here for years to come in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Evans, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. And just once again, as I said during the study session, I really appreciate all the hard work that Mrs. Berry and her entire team, including the Frost, I think, undertake to try to make all the changes and keep up to date with all the updates, and then go out and find money and find things that we can put into place, including bonds, to make this work. And just a ton of work, and really appreciate all that you do for our district.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Love?
I was just wondering if you could clarify. I know that in the anticipated expenditures, you talked about the promotion of a safe and healthy school environment. Can you kind of clarify like what that may look like and what that might mean, and like what, where that would go, I guess? Like, would that go to a particular curriculum, like for social emotional needs, or?
Great question.
Yeah.
So the override doesn't make you line item specific. It makes you follow the voter initiative pamphlet. And so those are the areas that we continually spend on. And so a lot of those are our support staff and support service areas that we have. We have counselors, we have social workers, we have paraprofessionals in the classroom that support not only our regular and our special education needs. So there are a number of things. We also have safety officers, security officers. If you can recall, back in 2017, we put into play a security officer that was shared between elementary schools, so that we could make sure we had support at our schools. We also were able to, as we aren't able to renovate some of our front offices, are able to have somebody at our front at the gates before someone's to come in and out. So there's a number of areas between support staff that helps our staff, and they continue to get raises, and we're supporting of those just like we are with our certified teachers or administration. And then also those safety features, if it's security officers that have helped at our elementary level especially, or some of those areas in support services where we supported our kids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mrs. Berry, one last question. When is the payoff on the lease that we have
So
due?
we plan on paying that off when we sell the bonds in July of 22. We
Okay.
plan on paying that $34 million, so it will probably be in August of July or of 22.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no other questions, Mrs. Berry, thank you. We'll go on with, are there any questions from the audience? No? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Berry. We appreciate it, and we do like hearing how, I I hope the public appreciates hearing what we have done with the voter-approved funding that they have given us and allowed us to have. And I think it's part of the whole transparency process that we can show them what we're doing with the money and showing that we are fulfilling the promises that we have made in the voters pamphlet to spend that money in the ways that we have indicated when we asked for the money. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Next, we will move on to our consent agenda, and Dr. Castillo will be presenting that this evening.
Madam President, members of the board, I think this is the shortest consent agenda I've ever presented to you folks in the last couple years. We have an out-of-state student travel pre-planning request from Castile and Perry High Schools. Monetary gifts in the amount of $268,460.14 was donated to a variety of schools. Request approval for items generously donated to our schools at $3,483.17. And our human resources packet, employment separation and compensation. We recommend approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Castillo. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor of approving our consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Now we'll go on to our action items. Our first one will be presented by Dr. Gilbert. This is one that we have put on hold due to the COVID situation. We were hoping to actually make these decisions earlier this year, but we are going to be talking tonight about our new secondary boundary recommendations. Dr. Gilbert.
Madam President, members of the board, the CUSD Applied Economics Report completed in 2019-20 has shown a strong projected growth in high school enrollment in the next 10-year period, particularly during the next 5 years. With continued growth projected around the district and the largest portion occurring in the Hamilton and Perry High School boundaries, the administration is recommending changes to the current high school attendance boundaries. With the addition of the new COSD 9th through 12th grade high school currently under construction and the need to balance 9th through 12th grade growth in the district, the secondary high school and the new COSD 9th through 12th grade high school located on Gilbert and Brooks Farm Road requires that the governing board approve attendance boundaries for the 2021-2022 school year. The administration presented options A1 through A4 for the new COSD 9th through 12th grade high school, which A2 through A4 include moving Arizona College Prep Erie campus and additional square miles to the new high school location. Additionally, options B1 through B2 and C1 through C2 were presented to address the projected increase in enrollment at Hamilton and Perry High School. The secondary high school and the new COSD 9th through 12th grade high school options were presented during a study session on January 8th, 2020. So we've been working on this for some time. Information meetings for the purpose of obtaining parent input were held at Perry High School on January 13th, Hamilton High School on January 16th, and Arizona College Prep Erie on January 21st of the 2020 school year. For our recommendations at this time, the administration is recommending to the board approve the following. Administration recommends that the new COSD 9th through 12th grade high school, option A2, as the attendance boundary for the new 9 through 12 high school beginning with the 2021-22 school year. This recommendation would move Arizona College Prep Erie and assign grid codes GF and GG to the new 9 through 12 secondary high school attendance boundaries beginning with the 2021-2022 school year. Attendance will be based on approved grid codes and open enrollment. Administration is also recommending option B2 and C2 attendance boundaries beginning with the 2021-2022 school year. Option B2 moves grid code GH from Perry High School and assigning to Basha High School attendance boundary beginning in the 2021-2022 school year. Option 2 moves grid code CC and CD from Hamilton High School and assigning to the Chandler High School attendance boundaries beginning in the 2021-2022 school year. This plan helps us meet our goals that we presented throughout this process, which are to establish long-term boundary adjustments for all high schools, maximize existing resources, relieve the increased projected enrollment at Hamilton and Perry High School, develop the new 9th through 12th grade high school boundaries to keep enrollment between 1,500 and 2,000 students, ensure the least amount of disruption for students and families, and as well as broaden ACP Erie's model of success to more students. Additionally, the new 9th through 12th grade high school, the new 9th through 12th grade high school will open with grades 9 through 12 in 2021-2022 school year. All current 9th through 11th grade ACP Erie students will move to the new school in 2021-2022 school year. Current 8th grade students residing in the new boundaries will attend the new 9th to 12th grade high school as 9th graders in 2021-2022 school year, and ACP Oakland will continue as a feeder school to ACP Erie. Perry and Hamilton High School boundary moves. All current Hamilton and Perry High School 9th through 12th grade students residing in the new boundaries will not change schools. Busing will continue for these students until the end of the 2023-2024 school year. Current 8th grade students residing in the new boundaries will attend Basha, which is option B2, and Chandler High School, which is option C2, as 9th grade students in 2021-2022. This was first presented as information at the September 23rd, 2020 Governing Board meeting. The administration is recommending approval.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. We did have a very long study session on this a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago actually, and I think a lot of, I was wondering, have you received any additional input that you wanted to share with us at this point?
I have not.
Okay. Could I please get a motion from the governing board, from a governing board member?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve A2, B2, and C2 as the attendance boundaries for the new 9 through 12 high school, beginning with the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions? How about if I start with you, Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Madam President. We've gotten a lot of letters. I'm sure everyone's gotten a lot of letters from parents and students, actually, on both sides as to whether they think this is a good plan or not. And I just want to remind people, and Dr. Gilbert just talked about meeting our goals for excellence. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And I just want to remind people that it's really important to us as administrators and educators that we provide an excellent opportunity for education for students. And Mr. Bickus, the president, the principal, the current principal at ACP Erie, has kind of made a lot of changes, made a lot of moves, and maintains that level of consistency and excellence for his students and for his staff. And I think this is just a great option for us to take that existing model, provide some of the needed not only curriculum but other activities, other things that students have actually left the school for because they didn't feel that they had a comprehensive program like this will offer. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm really looking forward to his leadership and his staff's leadership in having a little bit of room to grow, and at the same time meet our goals and continue the excellence that he's created in that environment.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Evans. Do we have any other? Mrs. McGee?
Dr. Gilbert, thank you for your presentation. I have two questions for you. One, are we going to continue to call it high school number 7?
No, we would move, if the board so approves, then it will be ACP. It will continue with the ACP name.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then I'm assuming that open enrollment is still an option for those students who may be in the boundaries that you've set out in the presentation, be it for high school number 7 or the other high schools. Can you tell me requests for open enrollment in the high school, approximately what percentage get approved, and maybe a rough idea if you know how many of requests we get for open enrollment in the high schools?
Students in those boundaries would have the opportunity to put in an open enrollment to move to another school. I'd say in the secondary, about 30% of our students are open enrolled to a school that is not their home school. The chances of a student being approved for open enrollment in the secondary is pretty high because of the space that we have at our schools. The biggest issue that students will find if an open enrollment isn't approved is if their behavior or their attendance or their grades are not up to par. And then we will work with them as they either improve their grades, or possibly it could be that we put them on some type of contract, but they have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Ms. Love, do you have any questions? Mrs. Bruner?
Again, I've said this before, but I wanted to thank you for this very long process extended by COVID. And I hope that the community feels like, they had a lot of opportunities to share before, COVID hit. I realize we've been distracted, all of us, with many other things in our lives. But I guess, as we discussed in the study session a few weeks ago, my major concern, which was shared by many parents, was addressed by Mr. Bickus regarding the new students coming in and feeling a part of this community that's already been built and connected. And so I'm looking forward to seeing the implementation of that. And then my other concern was that we use our resources wisely and efficiently. And I guess my question is, let's say that enrollment continues to increase at a Perry or a Hamilton or Chandler or Basha to the point where it's really crowded. Will we be able to reevaluate the lines, say in 2 or 3 years, to adjust, or do more to publicize the open enrollment option of ACP Erie? I'm just concerned that we'll have lots of space here, and then we still will need more space in other places, and I'm hoping that does not happen, so we can maximize what we've already spent in our buildings.
With your question, we can always look at both. One is we will be monitoring the numbers each year, and which is one of the things I do in regards to finding out where students are coming from to a school. We'll look at the enrollment, the projection where they should be, what does enrollment look like as where they're coming in, but at the same time, I'm looking at all the schools within the district. So if we find that the boundaries that we are setting right now is not fitting our need, then it would be needing to come back to the board as well as going back out into the community and see, is there something that we missed? Did something occur within an area of our district that the numbers were projected, or it was higher than what the projections were? And we would always come back to look at that.
Okay. I believe that Mr. Locke may have some comments concerning this issue that we received via email from the general public. So
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Castillo. We received 4 emails at feedback@cusd80.com on the topic. On this topic, to summarize, you heard from 3 parents of the school that like the school the way it is. One, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but our family picked ACP Erie for the specific reason that it was a small school. ACP School of Choice model meets our son's needs wonderfully because there are fewer students, the staff, and get to know him and other students better, and has enabled them to more successfully meet students' emotional needs. Another from an ACP parent, please consider leaving ACP Erie in its current location. There's not as much school choice north of the 202, perhaps due to socioeconomic conditions. One other one, quite simply, rethink the move. This favors the well-to-do. Need to give folks in Northwest Chandler more convenience and opportunity. And finally, one from a Basha parent saying that they're just concerned about moving new students to Basha, moving classrooms larger to prevent overcrowding. The school site is not solving our problem. So that's what we have.
Thank you. And then I received a public input tonight and saying that my daughter had attend ACP, and they have done a great job with limited facilities. The crown jewel deserves to have the same access to quality facilities like every other Chandler high school. Mr. Bickus, would you like to make any comments this evening? I think we'd like to hear from you and
Good evening, thank you. I just want to thank the governing board and district superintendency for the support that they have given ACP over the course of the years. It's been an adventure, and it's been one that I very much enjoyed, and I'm very excited for a new chapter if that's the direction that we go this evening. So I want to thank you for considering the recommendation from Dr. Gilbert and allowing us to have ACP NC USD and giving an opportunity for students to experience that environment.
thank you so much. I guess wanted to make a couple of comments that I do see with ACP, and I think the public comment that I ended up getting this evening concerning this kind of hits home because ACP Erie does not have the kind of facilities that the rest of our high schools do have, and in order for us to create that type of facility, not necessarily, or create those type of amenities that actually wouldn't even be on their campus because there isn't enough room. It's a landlocked campus at this point, in a small campus. It would, we're looking at an additional $7 million or more to upgrade other facilities and other places in order to allow ACP to continue to grow and expand. And even at this point, I think they have close to, I believe, almost 900 students. Is that correct, Mr. Rick? Yeah, okay. And this has been from, over the last few years where I remember there was a graduating class under 10 students the first year that you moved into the facility that you're at currently. And so I'm very much in favor of being able to give them a place to continue to grow. I believe that Mr. Bickus has also, and his staff, has indicated that they really do want to continue to make that connection with all of the students that are going into ACP, because that is a very important part of their culture, to get to know every student and to get to know who they are, what's important to them, and how to help them achieve their goals. That's a very personalized process, and I really commend the staff at ACP that they are working with those students to help them achieve their goals. Allowing us to, or having us expand this model and having Mr. Bickus and his staff willing to also go into a facility that will require them to expand this model and keep it as high quality as possible is very, very commendable. And I truly appreciate, your work is going to be cut out for you, definitely. But I think you have some great experience under your belt from it, and I'm very excited to see this happen. So are there any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, so I'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor of the boundary exemptions, the boundaries set with option A2, B2, and C2, which will include moving Arizona College Prep Erie to the new site of the high school number 7. Please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and good luck. I know there's a lot of work to do, and I'm sorry that we have shortchanged you on the time frame. Normally, you get a full year, and but it's a little bit shortened due to COVID, and I'm sorry. So, okay, we will go ahead.
Madam President, normally the high school principal has to put together a whole new staff. He's got his outstanding staff ready to go, and it's a matter of them identifying the materials and equipment they're going to need, and so they're going to do a fabulous job, and thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you. I assume you're going to have to hire a few more, though. So, thank you so much. Our next item is for Mrs. Berry, and this will be to approve the publication of the 2019-2020 annual financial report. We have Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the Arizona Revised Statute 15-905 or 904 requires school districts to prepare and submit an annual financial report by October 15th. Also in accordance with ARS 15-904, by November 15, 2020, the district's governing board must approve to publish on the Arizona Department of Education website that affidavit of publication must be filed with ADE within 30 days after publication, but no later than December 15th. So tonight we're asking the board to approve the annual financial report.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry. We did have an extensive study session on the annual financial report. So could I please get a motion from a board member?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the publication of the 2019-2020 annual financial report.
I'll second.
Are there any additional questions for Mrs. Berry concerning the financial report? Mr. Evans, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, all those in favor of approving the publication of the 2019-2020 annual financial report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion,
Aye.
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Our next item tonight is to approve the proposed Journey 2025 metrics for 2021 school year. Mrs. Stoward.
Hi. Madam President, members of the board, tonight I'm here to provide an update to the Journey 2025 board metric for the current school year and what we discussed on September 23rd. My goals this evening are to review the measures that were impacted by COVID-19 that we'll see within our Journey 2025 measures that would be considered something that would be unable to be reported this year, along with 2 measures that also need adjustments that are not COVID related. We discussed these on September 23rd during a study session, the first being measures that are related to AZM2. Due to school closures, AZM2 was canceled by the Arizona Department of Education, and so we're unable to report on that measure. In the proposal that we have, the draft for the measures for the current school year, that is highlighted in gray. So any measure that's related to AZM2 that we're unable to report is measured in gray. It hasn't been removed from the document. It's used as a placeholder because we do anticipate that we'll be able to report that next year for our measures because of state testing this spring. Another measure that was impacted by COVID-19 was the ACT exam. The ACT exam was canceled in the spring, but the Arizona Department of Education provided a makeup date for our seniors. That test is October 20th, which is next Tuesday. We're very excited about it. Within the proposal, the adjustment has been changed for 1 year only to say 12th grade rather than 11th grade. The next measure that was impacted was the International Baccalaureate testing, or the IB testing. That was canceled in the spring due to school closures. That's been highlighted in gray within the proposal because we'll be unable to report that data this year. The next one includes market share, which would be the current mobility rate for our charters this year. I have more information I'd like to share and data within this presentation, but we do see an impact with COVID-19. The other measure adjustments include ACT Aspire. This is not COVID related. We stopped administering this assessment in 2019. Therefore, we removed that from our measures because we don't have any data to report for the current year. The next one that we have is the CUSD pipeline data. That data we had brought to you last year to show that we were unable to report it due to the Arizona Department of Education not maintaining the portal and receiving that data on how our students are doing when they enter into post-secondary, if they enter into a college credit-bearing course in English and math. In working with Arizona Board of Regents, we were able to receive that data, so we're excited to be able to report that for this upcoming year. So that is no longer grayed out in our proposal because there will be data in that section. Looking a little closer into market share, on September 23rd, we brought a recommendation to adjust the metric due to the data that we were seeing for the current school year in Q1. And the recommendation was to adjust the mobility rate to be below 4% for that current year rather than below 2% when looking at the rubric. A lot of questions were centered around trends within the last few years and looking at a potential projection by the end of the year to see if that recommendation was something that was close to what we would see or if it was just a little inflated. So in looking at that, I was able to share data with you that showed where we were in Q1 that guided us to that recommendation. And so in the graph on the left, you'll see the number of students that were considered mobile, where they started with us and then withdrew and entered into a charter school. And we have our trends by year. 2017-18, 2018-19, and 2019-20 were all for the entire year, how many students were considered mobile within that. The 2020-2021 number of 574 students was really our start date in August through September 23rd. And we were already surpassing that 2019-2020. So looking at that, in September, our mobility rate was already at 1.31%. Again, questions were centered around breaking that down. So in digging further, I have some more data to share with you tonight. And these are our mobility trends over the past few years. The gray bars are actual numbers or actual data that we've been able to report broken down by quarter. We have 2018 broken down by quarter, 2019, 2020, and then we have 2021. The red bars are projections, and those projections were created by looking at the last 3 years and creating an average to determine what our projection might be using typical year data, right, prior to COVID. What we've noticed is that a majority of our mobility occurs within semester 1. We lose roughly 275 to 300 students in Q1 in a typical year. And then in Q2, about another 200 students that withdraw from our campus to attend a charter school. Based on those projections, looking at that, we can anticipate that in Q2, another 200 students may withdraw and go to a charter school. In Q3, it'll be roughly 144 students, and then in Q4, which is our lowest, would be approximately 24 students. And looking at all of that data and creating a projection, we're looking at a 2.1% projected rate for mobility. After breaking that data down, I'm coming to you with a new recommendation. My recommendation for 1 year only is to adjust the mobility rate rubric expectations to be below 2.5%, rather than 2% for just 1 year. In looking at that, we can account for what we've experienced in Q1, but also looking at the projections that we may see throughout the rest of the school year without being able to predict the future of what's going to happen throughout the rest of the school year. So once again, we're looking at that suspension for those COVID-19 measures, a suspension for AZM2, ACT is for our seniors, our IB, we're doing a 1 year suspension because of the data, and then for market share, there's a recommendation to increase 0.5%. Do you have any questions?
I have one question for you. As we look at what would be the number for mobility, the number of students total that we would be looking at a 2.5%? Do you have that number?
So it really, the way it's calculated, you look at the number of students that are enrolled with us for 120 days. So when I was basing that off of, when I got the projection of the 2.1, I was looking at our current enrollment at the end of the quarter. So I think we could roughly lose another 350 students before we surpass that number, in addition to what was projected.
Okay, because it looks like there's about 380 maybe for additional that would be at the 2.1, and so about another 350. Okay.
That's what I'm looking at.
Okay. Are there any other? I guess we should probably get a motion on the table. Unless we have some additional input for on these metrics. Ms. Love?
I was just going to make the motion.
Okay.
Madam President, I make the motion to approve the proposed Journey 2025 metrics for 2020 to 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the metrics? Mr. Evans?
No, it's just thank you to Amber for all the amazing work you've done to try to help us get things where we want them to be.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I also wanted to say, Amber, thank you also very much, because I know you put a lot of work in researching our past mobility rates and put a lot of time into the projections, and we're able to really, bring that number, I think, into something that's a little bit more realistic, and I truly appreciate that, because I was the one, being a little concerned about that 4% mobility rate. So I also want to say that I appreciate you being able to work with those powers that be to get some CUSD pipeline data, and we're able to reinstate that metric, and thank you for all the work that you and your colleagues have done in order, because I know it takes a team to get that kind of information out of some of the other organizations, so I truly appreciate that.
Well, absolutely. The research team has been phenomenal with this, and the Arizona Board of Regents have been great partners in this. And we appreciate being able to look at that data, because now we've been able to create some visualizations for our principals so they can see the trends within their mobility at their sites. So it's been a great project to showcase to our principals so they can see what's going on their campuses.
Fantastic. And maybe be able to make some adjustments.
Exactly.
And because I think that's really the whole point, is to be able to have our sites, our principals, our teachers, our people who are out there working with those students be able to make a difference in this mobility rate, and help decrease it, because the better the programs and feelings that parents have about our schools, the lower mobility rate that we are going to have as a district.
Absolutely.
And,
we want to serve all the students in our community. So yeah.
Absolutely. So if there's no other questions, let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of approving our proposed Journey 20 25 metrics for the 2021 school year, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Our next item is Mr. Fletcher, and we're going to talk about a cybersecurity filter.
Madam President, members of the board, DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service. These are attacks that target websites and online services. The aim of these attacks is to overwhelm our network to the point where it shuts it down. The district currently contracts with CenturyLink to provide services that recognize the attacks and then take appropriate measures to alleviate them, basically distribute them. The district currently pays CenturyLink $10,000 per month. It is believed that the district can provide the same service with faster response time. The technology department would like to purchase the Fortinet DDoS cybersecurity filter. The payback period for this purchase and services would be less than 4 years. The cost of the DDoS cybersecurity filter and the installation service is $283,162.24 plus $60,000 per year license and maintenance fee. We recommend approval of the purchase of the Fortinet DDoS security filter from Enterprise Network Solutions via state contract, which complies with all school procurement rules and the amount of $283,162.24. So figuratively for the board, picture a 4-lane freeway, traffic moving along as it's supposed to, and then all of a sudden going to 1 lane. What this filter does is it recognizes ahead of time that we're getting attacked and then starts to distribute the traffic to other portions of the network so our regular traffic can get through. Most of our attacks happen during the day. Our response time from CenturyLink, which is very, very good, is 20 to 30 minutes. Well, you can imagine shutting down or slowing our network for 20 to 30 minutes. Our team believes that they can react faster, more responsive, and get our network back on track. So we recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the purchase of the Fortnite DDoS cybersecurity filter from Enterprise Network Solutions in the amount of $283,162.24.
I'll second.
Great. Are there any questions for Mr. Fletcher? Yes, Mrs. McGee.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Fletcher. One, how often does these attacks happen?
Daily.
Daily, okay. Thank you.
No, it's continuous. So really what they're trying to do is overwhelm the network to the point that they can then break into the network and install some malware, which then will be viruses throughout the network.
And so on an ongoing basis, this is happening to our
It is.
system? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. And then the other question that I have is the payback is about 4 years. Do they, this company that we're purchasing this from, continually update the software for us? Is that
There will
include-
be upgrades, and I'm sorry, Mrs. Mausden, I didn't get back to you correctly on this. Eventually, we will get to the point where we have to buy a bigger box if the attacks continue. So the more technology you put out there, the more likely we're going to get it attacked. The 3 major people that are getting attacked are Dr. Castile, Mrs. Berry, and myself. They think that's where the money is, that's where the information is, so they're constantly targeting the 3 of us. It's pretty incredible when you see the numbers.
Mr. Fletcher, you could send them some of that information from Stevie Barr on the kinds of, well, I guess attacks, for lack of a better term, and how many times they're being diverted. He has it on a grid, and we'll send you a couple of those reports that they're being monitored, how many cyber hits are happening.
Does this happen in other school districts?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Love?
Just out of curiosity, because you said that the IT team feels that they can address this faster than CenturyLink. What is it about the Fortnite DDoS? I like that word, by the way, cybersecurity filter that's faster and more unique than what CenturyLink, I guess, offers.
We have a body sitting there watching the network traffic.
Okay.
So especially like when Amber's testing, we have a body that monitors network traffic. As we start to see the volume go up, we start to shut things down at the schools.
Okay.
So we literally have a body sitting there watching network traffic.
Okay. And so with CenturyLink, you said it takes about like 20 to 23 minutes, like to shut everything down. Like what's the projected time for DDoS?
If they don't do it immediately, there's going to be some very unpleasant conversations.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans, do you have any questions?
Why do I see your face like looking skeptical right now as you have to ask me that?
Of course you have questions.
The first one goes along, Mr. Fletcher, with what Ms. Love was just asking about, and that is, do we currently have dedicated personnel who communicate with CenturyLink to kind of help, because I'm assuming what happens is we're in a queue with everybody else who's being attacked on a constant basis. So we have that lag time. Is that what the 30 minutes is for? Do we have somebody who's kind of monitoring the current status?
We have an escalation process with CenturyLink. So as we see it, if we see it before they do, then we will escalate it and ask them to start moving more quickly. But since they control the box, we don't necessarily see them distributing the service like we would like to see it distributed.
Okay, all right. And then, just so we understand this a little bit more clearly, these are the same, well, not absolutely the same kind, but similar attacks to what we've heard from Target and Home Depot and probably every single bank on the planet, some of which end up in requests for digital currency in order to get your network back if they get through. I think it was City of Baltimore was shut down for well over a month, as well as other cities. So is this the kind of thing you're talking about that's happening
Yes, sir.
on a daily basis as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, so we'll have a dedicated person or dedicated group who works with these guys. And then this is I guess I don't want to ask too many questions. I should probably ask our BASHA cybersecurity students about this stuff because this is exactly the area that they're going into. So maybe field trips would be in order, but this is a physical, if I'm not mistaken. Is there a need for redundancy in this kind of a physical setup?
No, we should not have a need for redundancy. We just need to recognize when the bot attacks are happening and start to distribute that traffic elsewhere so that our typical traffic can get through.
Okay. And then you talked about imagine a 4-lane freeway, but that's like very 1980s. I haven't seen a 4-lane freeway in a long time. They're all like 6 to 8 lanes. So I guess I would ask why you didn't just go ahead now. Is this almost obsolete, the 40 DDoS 1500E, when I know there was a 40 DDoS 2000E out there that handles a lot more lanes of traffic? Did we just get a better deal, or are you just a good negotiator?
I'm really not sure how to answer that other than saying we believe that this box at this time will handle our traffic for approximately 5 years.
For about 5 years. And it wouldn't be a better deal to just go ahead and get the bigger box?
The technology may change in the next 3 to 5 years where a different type of cybersecurity DDoS box is available. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves.
Okay. And then can I just go back through the actual quote, because I was a little bit confused as how it was done, the way you listed extended pricing, because you said there's a $60,000 a year ongoing contract, but I don't see that listed. I'm assuming that's within the $79,999.20.
That is correct.
And then okay, but then the extended price is that, it doesn't come out to $499 if we spread that over 4 years. So did you just get a really good price on it?
Yes.
And then professional services, that $7,000 for the extended, is that also over the 4 or 5 year time period? Because 225 and 175 don't add up to 7,000.
No, the 7,000 is a one-time configuration and installation service for the box and training our staff.
Oh, okay. And then will we need to have our own personnel trained on this, and will there be more than one? And then what resources do you, or time, I guess, time as a percentage of their work will be devoted to doing this in terms of whoever's monitoring this stuff?
There will be multiple staff members trained on what to do and how to do it. The demo box will actually be here tomorrow or Friday for us to start working on, and I'm not sure if I answered all of your question.
Well, speaking of that, no, I think you did, but I was just asking about what time commitment in terms of percentage will our personnel be, used for specifically keeping track of the network in this way? Is it any different than current?
No. It should be
Okay.
it should be
And
the same
then
as current.
will you run this side by side with CenturyLink for a little while, just until we're really trained and feel proficient on it?
No, we will not.
It'll just get turned off, and one will get turned off and the other will be on.
Correct.
Isn't
I
that
mean, there
good
may be
time
a 2 or
for-
3 day overlap, but once the box is up
Okay.
and running and doing what it's supposed to do, there's no reason for us to continue with CenturyLink.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mrs. Bruner?
I think Mr. Evans covered my question about staffing. But I could, maybe just to add on to that a little bit, what is the person who's going to be responsible for this doing now, and how is that going to get covered, whatever their current position is?
They're currently monitoring the network traffic as is. This is just going to give them the ability to distribute the service over multiple paths. It'll give us control of it, of the box.
Okay. And then what other similar sized districts or businesses use this system? Like, have we kind of talked to some others about what are the pros and cons of this?
I would have to ask our network department what research they've done, but they're pretty thorough about doing their research before they bring a recommendation to me.
Just one last question that I have is, do you think that this system is going to be more effective than the service that we have with CenturyLink versus without the consideration of the time response that we get from CenturyLink?
No, I think it's compatible. It's just the response time and our ability to respond faster.
And be able to control the
Correct.
what's being done and where the traffic is being directed.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote on this. All those in favor of approving the purchase of the Fortinet DDoS cyber security filter from Enterprise Network Solutions in the amount of $283,162.24, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. And I believe, Mr. Fletcher, you have the K through 6 camera project.
Madam President, members of the board, part of the 2019 bond was to increase the number of security cameras at our elementary schools. It's been approximately 10 years since we rolled out the 12 camera system at all our elementary schools. Each year we receive requests to increase their camera coverage. We are proposing to add 6 additional cameras to all elementary sites except Auxier and Rice Elementary. I've broken down the component schedule for you. The district has chosen Enterprise Network Solutions, who's a longtime partner for this project via state contract, which complies with all school procurement rules. We recommend approval of Enterprise Network Solutions for the K-6 elementary camera project in the amount of $2,338,416. And I will tell you, this is a worst case scenario. Once we get more into the quantities, once we get more into the cable runs, we'll be able to negotiate a better price.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion?
Sorry. Madam President, I make a motion to approve Enterprise Network Solutions for the K through 6 elementary camera project in the amount of $2,338,416.00.
I'll second.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Fletcher? Ms. Love?
So you mentioned that you're expanding it except for Auxier and Rice Elementary. Is that just because Rice is already getting
Correct.
work done? What about Auxier?
Auxier and Rice both have the additional cameras that the other 29 elementaries do not.
Okay, perfect. That's all I want to know.
Anyone else? Okay, so.
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Evans.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Did I cut somebody else off?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, you know that in the past I've been an absolute no on cameras, primarily for the reason that there are so many cameras on campus, even at the elementary level. In a school of 400 students, that means there are probably, with staff, 450 cameras on campus at any one time. And if we had a way of gathering information from people who are carrying phones, we'd have all the information we need. A good case came up at Chandler High School a few years ago when I think an older gentleman may have suffered some kind of a physical impairment in the middle of the night while he was driving and raced through campus at 90 miles an hour because he was, I don't think he survived that, but he may have had a heart attack. So we were able to help police and fire and everybody else with that information on that person to show kind of what had happened. So I guess I wasn't thinking of cameras being needed when students aren't in school. I wasn't thinking of the things that could occur. So this is still a lot of money, though, $2,300,000. I still have a problem with that. Can you make me feel better about that at all?
I think it
It's
goes.
not like they're using these. Because I mean, I think of the equity things we're trying and bullying and things like that we're trying to get under control with students, and that's not what these are necessarily for.
I think it enhances the safety, security, and health of all students on all our K-6 campuses. It gives the administration additional opportunities to identify those who may be bullying on campus, see them in action, and go back and handle the situation. All of our elementary schools are asking for additional cameras. I think it's a tool for them to help deter those situations you were just talking about on our campuses.
Mr. Narducci, do you have any, you're the ones that deal with the elementary principals and relaying their requests. So.
Yeah, I just want to say, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Fletcher is exactly right. I mean, every year we put our safety we put questionnaires out to our parents in the elementary. So we have questionnaires that go out every year, and the survey data always comes back. The highest concern is safety of our students on campus. Principals have asked every year to have increased cameras. And so this was an opportunity to do that. The reasons why is because there's many blind spots with the initial cameras that we had out that they have seen over time, especially with some of our other campuses, that they need to monitor based on the safety of students, those individuals that are by campuses, and some areas that can't be picked up by the number of cameras we have right now. Also, we have certain doors that we want to make sure we have cameras on. As you know, in some of our schools, we have specialized programs where we do have students that run. And so we want to make sure that we're able to see pathways that maybe students have left. And it's very helpful if we go right to the camera to be able to capture that so we can have more information as we're trying to get information to other sources that are helping us at that time to locate students. So the cameras are really important, not only internally, but externally, because they do help us identify how we can best serve and help our students be safe.
Any more questions, Mr. Evans?
No, I guess so.
Okay. To piggyback onto that, Mr. Narducci, I was also, reading or hearing about cameras being used to identify individuals who have had, not necessarily in our places, but they're utilizing those to determine who has been in close contact with students that or staff members who have had COVID, and that they've been able to identify those close contacts a little bit easier due to cameras. And I think that we do need to. I'm actually a little bit shocked at the prices, considering the cameras are just really kind of a small portion of this, about 1/7 of the cost. But all our network switches and our servers do we not have the expansion capability from our servers or the switches that are there already?
You're adding 6 cameras to every campus that's already maxed out with a roughly 30-day storage. So you not only have the processing of the camera over the Ethernet cables, but you also have the storage that we have to take care of. So it's just a function of data.
And the switches?
Just got to switch back and forth to get to the network.
Okay, because I'm looking at, whoa, close to $1 million on the switches. That's like, wow. So.
Got to have the hardware to run the end product.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Marsden, also, and I left one area out, when we do have lockdowns or we have evacuations, we assemble a team here. Dr. Gilbert and I work together in assembling a team here, bringing everybody together, the directors of safety, et cetera. And we utilize the cameras here, as many views as we can get, to be able to assist the site, because many times we'll only have one person go to a command center and work directly with either the fire department or the police department. So that also gives us extra eyes and being able to help in those situations as well.
And I assume this would also help with any kind of vandalism or other incidences that happen when the campus is unoccupied.
It definitely
also
helps us review and to be able to hold those accountable that may have vandalized and be able to give as much information as we can to the authorities, that would be investigating that.
Great. Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Fletcher? Okay, all those in favor of approving Enterprise Network Solutions for the K-6 Elementary Camera Project in the amount of $2,338,416, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Mr. Evans?
No, I said aye.
We can't hear you, Mr. Evans. Oh, We're hardly able to hear you. Oh, well. I believe you said aye. If not, Mr. Evans? Okay, yeah, I was going to say, if that wasn't your vote, please get a hold of Mrs. Nye and have her correct the records.
Okay, thank you.
Our next are just information items. Our first is the technology report. I don't know, you can just look at that. They were provided for our information. One is the purchases made to vendors, and the other is sites purchases for technology from the warehouse. If any board members have any additional questions, please email Mr. Fletcher, and he will be able to answer those. Our next is our student activity reports. Mrs. Berry.
Madam President, members of the board, the student activity reports for the months of July 2020 through September 2020 are provided for review. Additionally, the year-ending balances for the auxiliary, the tax credit, and the student activity reports are provided. We added those since the AFR was finished. We decided to add so you could see the final balances on all three of those accounts. There was only one account, an ROTC account, that is carrying over a negative balance, and that's just due to revenues that we know are coming forward. So we make sure all of those are clean prior to the annual financial report being finalized. President Marsden, we did see you brought up, and I know you emailed a question related to a couple line items were doubled, and our programmer creates that for us, that report. And so we checked the numbers to confirm that the line item is correct. It's just doubled for some reason in a couple of different spots. We're going to go with our programmer tomorrow, so thank you for catching that.
Okay. Those were just duplicate line items for some reason.
Right.
Were like, there was a little glitch in printing
Yes.
or something.
Right. So we're going to ask the programmer tomorrow because he has to pull two different years because of how we pay that and puts it into one report.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Berry? Our next is private day tuition expenditures for quarter one of the 2020-21 school year, our current year. Mr. Rother.
Yes, Madam President, members of the governing board, Dr. Castile. This is for our private day tuition expenditures for quarter one of this school year. A list of private day school tuition expenditures for the first quarter is provided for your review. I also want to mention just really briefly that compared to last year for our first quarter, our expenditures, the amount of students that we're servicing in a private day placement has dropped from 138 students last year at the end of the first quarter to 118 students. So we're down 20 students in our private day placement. And we also, in terms of budget, we're around $100,000 less than we were last year at this time as well. So just a real quick kudos to Dr. Marshall and the student services team, who's largely responsible for those numbers.
And are those students ones that we have found other places, or have they left our district, or are they still are they still our students? Have they graduated? What has, or they've just been integrated into our new special ed facility that we have?
Yeah, so all of those.
Okay.
We know that some students may have received, or some families may have applied for the Empowerment Scholarship and may have chosen to spend their funds another way. But largely, I think that it's due to successfully transitioning students back to our district from private day placement, either putting them back in their home schools or placing them in the Chandler Learning Center. A few programs at the Chandler Learning Center have actually doubled in size. And so we know that we're servicing students in those programs as well. The other thing, just to note, long-term suspensions are one of the reasons why we might place a student in a private day setting. We obviously didn't have those fourth quarter and into this quarter. So those are the primary reasons for the decrease in the amount of students in private day, which obviously saves us money.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. And then we have our road agenda, our board agenda roadmap. And this Saturday, we have our ASBA Delegate Assembly virtually that Mrs. McGee will be attending virtually. Hopefully she's been able to get all of the links or whatever is needed for the registrations on that from Mrs. Nye, I assume. Yes? Okay, great. Our next meeting will be October 28th. It looks like we're going to be doing perhaps a little bit more on effective resource management, and then we will have only one meeting in November and one meeting in December, and that'll be the end of the year. Dr. Castile, we also have citizen comments, and Mr. Locke is going to be presenting what we've received through our website for public comments.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Castile. During this transition time of social distancing, we continue to provide the public with various ways to provide input to the board and administrators, including this version of citizen comments for items the governing board will address on any topic. The opportunity is promoted on our governing board page, allowing for the convenience of providing feedback from the comfort of your home or smartphone. With our current format, we're able to provide board members feedback in advance to give them time to process the information and ask questions of the district administration. This process also gives us time to sort responses by categories and provides a big picture view in addition to all the verbatim responses. We're providing the responses on the governing board website for all to see in an effort to maintain transparency. Now, since our last board meeting 3 weeks ago, we've heard from 31 people. Would like to give you a breakdown of how those responses came out. 19 people, or 46%, expressed interest in keeping Google Classroom virtual instruction. 4 responses, or rounded up to 10%, related to the return of school in person. 13 responses, or 32%, expressed concerns about safety. 1 person had a question about the acknowledgement form. 4 people commented on the school boundaries, which we shared that a little bit earlier tonight. And obviously the numbers do not add up to 100%. That's because people could offer opinions on more than one subject. You have all the submissions verbatim for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. I think as this got moved, the link got dropped. So Mrs. Knight, will you be able to upload that link again into the agenda? Because I'm not seeing it on my computer right now, but I know it was there earlier.
It's the same one that I emailed you.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. It's just not there now?
No, it's not there now. There was a little bit of some movement in some of the items, the order of items, and I think somehow it got lost. Dr. Castile.
Madam President, members of the board, just a few things. A lot of excitement with our junior highs and high school students joining us, and we are fully open and operational. I want to put out a plea to our parents and students and staff to please wear those face coverings and masks, and social distancing, especially in our secondary schools, isn't always possible, and we want to keep everybody safe. And if you are having symptoms, to please stay home and take the cautious route so that we keep everybody safe, and we certainly will work with you. The morning after our last governing board meeting, the Arizona Educational Foundation announced that 3 of our elementary schools are now A+ schools. We congratulate the staff at Haley, Navarrete, and Riggs Elementary Schools. Those of you that have been around here a while know it's a rigorous process it has a lengthy application written, and visiting teams, they come and look at the data, and really what they're coming to see when they visit is, are you doing what you say you're doing? And we're real excited. Since 1983, when this program started, we've had 81 schools have been 81 times we've received the recognition. Another bit of nice recognition, niche.com, which I know you're familiar with, rolled out their K-12 ratings this week, and Chandler Unified once again has been rated the #1 district in the metropolitan Phoenix area. This recognition is not application-based. We have nothing to do with it, as a matter of fact. Niche evaluates a great deal of data, including student achievement, staff and community satisfaction. And clearly, this recognition is rolled out to many people, beginning with the governing board. So certainly thank you for your leadership and support. You'll be receiving some information over the next 6 or 8 weeks on 3 important dates, and I know a couple of you might have even been thinking, what are we doing? Relative to dedicating Robert Rice Elementary School, and we'll set that up as soon as things calm down a little bit, hopefully with COVID, and being able to honor Mr. Rice. I know the school is anxious to formally do that. We're also looking to dedicate the Chandler High swimming pool to our beloved swim coach that passed away, Carrie Crosswhite, and been in touch with Lori. And we've tentatively targeted a date for December 5th. I think it's a Saturday that she would like to have something done. Terry Locke is working with the Chandler High folks to get the resolution so we can bring it to you for approval to name that facility in honor of him. And then now that ACP decision is, we won't call it high school number 7 after tonight, Arizona College Preparatory Campus that will be moving. We'll have what we did at Castile High. We didn't have a groundbreaking, but we had, help me.
Topping off.
Thank you, a topping off. I keep on roof raising. It's not, we're not raising the roof. It's a topping off celebration. If you'll recall, we did that out at Castile, just again to anoint that. We want to give Mr. Bickus an opportunity maybe to engage some of the community there and invite them and have the students participate with the ACP students. And I know he's anxious to get started. So we'll be doing that when the weather permits and parking lots allow people to park. But the campus is on time. In fact, it's a couple weeks ahead of time, the construction, so we thoroughly plan to be in on time next summer. So we'll keep you posted on those dates and get them on your calendar, so hopefully you can all attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castile. Do our board members have any comments? Ms. Love?
I just have a couple tonight. Thank you to Dr. Castile. I was able to, and Donna, I was able to participate in our second suicide prevention online training through the ASBA hosted by the Black Alliance and the Hispanic Native American Indian Caucus. Right before our executive session, they set up my computer early so that I could participate. It is recorded, so if anybody wants to review that second part, because I know we all had to rush here for executive session and it was like back to back. Just some takeaways. They talked about cultural humility and how that's important in addressing, suicide, particularly with our Black Indigenous students of color. They also talked about engaging students of color in art, poetry, exercises, particularly with our LGBTQ youth and our Latinx youth. And then they also said that when you create bullying policies that address bullying towards our LGBTQ youth and then have a bit of anti-racism in that, it reduces depression and anxiety for all students, which I thought was really interesting. So if you want to watch it, it is on the ASBA's website. Great presentation. 3 professionals in the Valley were able to just kind of present on our different cultures and how they deal with suicide. Not every culture has a word for suicide. And so when we are talking about suicide prevention and awareness, we need to keep that in mind. And that our students of color, when we talk about suicide, don't think that we're talking to them. They think, that's a white child's problem. And so we really need to find ways to engage those students in that conversation, particularly since those communities, suicide may be a bit more taboo due to cultural and religious beliefs. So it was a great presentation from our professionals. And then just a reminder for our board members that the ASBA member survey is due October 21st. It is a Survey Monkey. They have disabled IP address tracking, and you don't have to provide a name, so it's completely confidential. They just are looking for feedback to improve services to their members. And as a Black Alliance president, I am supposed to remind the community to fill those out. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Love. Mr. Evans is having some connection problems, so he's not going to be making any comments this evening. Mrs. Brunner, do you have anything?
Nothing important. I just also was at that training before, and that was really enlightening. And also, President Mazin and I participated in an event with the Army, and that was a really interesting forum that we had about, the future of ROTC with the National School Board Association. So I appreciated that. And that's about it. Thanks.
And Mrs. Brunner said what I was going to say about the Army ROTC groups, and it was kind of interesting because they were talking about how to increase diversity and reach more individuals. Also, they're looking at doing some improvements on some of their programs and kind of modernizing some of the things for the students and having to be able to better meet the needs of both the Army and for students when they graduate high school, because I just found it very interesting, not only with the Army ROTC programs, but with all of the ROTC programs, whether they were the Air Force or like a Navy or whatever, any of the branches that have ROTC, that many of their students don't go on to the military, but they do end up learning skills that are so valuable for career and or college. And I think that it's a great program that helps students learn responsibility, they learn civics, they learn a lot of different things that are very valuable for them, for their career and their future. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting and say goodnight and see you in 2 weeks.